bottom down so that it could land, and it looks like as it was right about to hit the ground, it was pointed face down. So somehow the command to get the probe to turn upside down so that it could land, it didn't receive, and so it just nosedived right into the surface of the moon. Now, we never know when someone's interfering with a civilian space program project. NASA sent several probes to Mars that never made it. Oh, another Mars probe incinerated in the atmosphere. Oh, we lost contact with another Mars probe. I know most people don't remember this part in history because it was all the way back into the 90s, but we actually did attempt several probes into the Mars atmosphere that didn't make it. Well, I'm of the opinion that some of those landers and probes were shot down by people who didn't want them to land there. So there were certain people saying, no, we don't want you to put probes on Mars just yet. But now we're like, yeah, let's get some pictures and we'll see some stuff. And
so who's on Mars and who's on the moon?
So Lunar Operations Command, or LOC, which is the main headquarters of the Earth Defense Force and the Covert Military Terrestrial Space Program, is on the backside of the moon. That, again, is a participation of these G8, G20 countries in numbers that I can't specify.
Are there any visible buildings if you...
Absolutely. Oh, I mean, you can... there are pictures from the dark side of the moon from the early lunar landers where you can see that stuff. Alex Collier, who I actually got to meet for the first time a couple weeks at a conference ago, which was fabulous. He's a great guy. Many years ago, he did something he called the Moon and Mars Lecture, which anyone who hasn't seen it, I recommend they go to YouTube and look it up. And he actually had, from a lot of these old coffee table books of the lunar module pictures that sort of appeared in between 1970 and 1975, which don't have airbrushed pictures. So if you zoom in some of these pictures, you can see some of these bases and, you know, craters with lights in them, you know, where you can see the buildings that are in them with the lights lit up and so forth. He does a great lecture on that, or did decades ago, which is still available, where he looks at some of the pictures and zooms into some of these things. So there's a lot of that was visible. And one of the points that he makes was, after about 1975, the same photos, you know, in the same Time Life books were airbrushed. But somehow there was this little window where they were like, nah, we don't need to airbrush the photographs. No one's going to look at them. No one's going to zoom in. Ah, it's fine. And then after a few years of going, oh, oops, we've got a whole bunch of evidence out there, then they started airbrushing all the photos. But there are definitely photos from those first series of photographs that were released of the orbiter going around the dark side that show bridges out in the middle of craters that are miles long, structures that extend from the surface that are miles high, craters that have structures and buildings in them that are massive.
So why are they keeping all this secret?
That's a complicated question with a complicated answer because it's changed over time.
Yeah, but actually right now what I see, because I'm hearing a lot of people say, oh, we're going through a full disclosure. And I don't think so, because when I see how this topic is being treated by the mass media,
right,
they're doing worse than that. They don't want people to get interested in that, and they're forcing kind of the people to believe this is all, you know, in their mind. And I just heard someone talking about the Roswell crash from France,
right,
a French from France, and he was debunking everything, and he just forgot about, you know, all the witnesses that were there.
Right. Hundreds.
He even talked about it, just, right, and said, no, there was actually a special project, you know. So when I see that, and I don't see that we're going through a disclosure, so right, can you...
Well, you always have these two camps. You have the camp that says we need to tell people the truth because it serves our interest of our civilization, our society, and our species to tell people the truth. And you have those people who say, no, we can't tell people the truth because they can't handle it, and or we're making too many billions of dollars this way, and if we tell people the truth, then we won't be making billions of dollars anymore. So you have these two camps.
And some are involved in human trafficking too, I think.
It's both sides, light and dark, right?
Okay.
You've got, again, these two camps, two sides, light, dark, good, bad, that are arguing with each other, fighting with one another, in disagreement with one another, and at certain times able to agree on certain things out of mutual self-interest. So I don't think we're approaching a full disclosure scenario. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I think if we get to a full disclosure scenario, it's going to be a few years. Let's just be honest and admit that the whole world, not you or you or you, but the whole world would not be able to absorb that very well if it were everything all at once right now. I don't think that that would go well. I think, to be honest with you, that there's a lot of groups of people, what we call social psychological demographics, which would handle this very badly. Some of them might think mass suicide is an option. Some of them might think mass murder is an option. We think that a certain amount, and we don't think that's a lot of people. It's only about this 15% of mentally and emotionally unstable people in the social psychological demographic wheel. So 85% of everyone in some kind of disclosure event, whether it was friendly or unfriendly, let's just leave that there. I'm going to talk about hoax alien invasion later this week, but let's just leave that there for now. Whether it was friendly or unfriendly, 85% of the population would acclimate we figure within 14 to 90 days, depending on how you look at it on paper. Well, that's pretty good. That whatever happens, that you've got this most people acclimating and accepting it within a certain period of time. But again, it's that 15%. It's that 15% of mentally and emotionally unstable people that might not be okay a year later, 2 years later. But they're more likely to blow up in the beginning than they are 12 months down the road.
Yeah, but if they continue to lie to them, they won't be prepared at all, you know, that's...
Well, whatever happens when it happens is going to happen in such a way that it won't matter who's prepared or who's not prepared. It's just going to happen. Again, whether it's friendly or unfriendly. There are lots of, let's just say, warning signs of what may be coming. Things to look for as far as, you know, what we should be prepared for or not prepared for. So I think that we're still approaching a inevitable disclosure moment, and I like to refer to this as an inevitable moment, meaning whether it's next week or 10 years from now, it's going to happen. That's the inevitability. Now, is it likely to happen in the next week? Based on what I'm looking at right now, no. Might, but not likely. Is it likely to happen in 10 years? Ooh, from what we're looking at, we think that's way outside the margin on that other end. So if we're looking at brackets here where we have next week or 10 years from now as the inevitability, at some point within that bracket, it's an inevitable thing that will have a disclosure moment. But it's likely that it's not going to be a week and it's not going to be 10 years. It's likely that that bracket is actually somewhere here.
And it's also always going to happen. I mean, there's a lot of people that they got a lot to lose.
Yep.
So they will have a struggle there, I think so.
Well, I will spend some time, like I said, giving a lecture on hoax alien invasion and the who's, where's, why fares of why that is, would be, or would not be. And so that's a lecture that I can do in about 4 or 5 hours, and I'm going to be supposed to try and cram it into an hour and a half or something, so I'm going to have to crunch it way up. But I'll do my best to try and explain, to answer that question that's a much longer answer that can take me hours to try and explain. But to simplify, let's just say that there are those that know that we have to change. The status quo cannot stand, or we will not survive as a civilization or a species. There are those who resist that change because it might mess with their profits. So that struggle between those who know it's inevitable and has to happen and those who don't want to lose their money continues to happen like this. Now, this is not a 50-50 fight. where this is 50% of the population and this is 50% of the population. It's actually those who think that we need to change are a much higher percentage of the population of that group, and those that think that the status quo must stay the same is actually a much smaller percentage. So if we were to make a bar graph, this side is over here and this side is actually over here. This side's very strong and very powerful though, and they're not just letting go, but they don't necessarily have enough control to stop the process. So I would suggest, again, it's inevitable. The question is just when. Is it here or somewhere in here? I would argue and suggest it's somewhere in here, in the 6 to 36 month range. That's right now. You ask me that 6 months from now, I might have a different answer based on different intel that I've been given. But at this moment, between 6 and 36 months. Between somewhere in that bracket, we should see a fundamental event that will change everybody's viewpoint on what is real and what is not real in a way in which is inarguable.
And where's the intel you're talking about?
Oh, I am still a ranked and security clearanced officer of United States Marine Corps Special Section. So I get regular intelligence briefings and I have regular access to the intelligence staff at United States Marine Corps Special Section. So anything that they know, I can know by asking the right people.
So have you heard about a large object coming towards our solar system and just parked behind the moon or something like that?
Not Moana or whatever, with the giant asteroid that came in that was probably a spaceship. You talking about something different than that, or?
No, I don't have, because I talk to experiencers and adoptees and people like that, and sometimes they giving us information that they got from
Sure.
the zoo. And,
so we've been having extraterrestrials come into our solar system for millennia. As we have developed our space program technology and have been able to secure our solar system space, less comes into the solar system that we don't want. But that doesn't mean that things still don't come in. And sometimes they come in such a way that we can't just, smack them and send them on their way. So there are those who are authorized. There are those who we have diplomatic relationships with, and we're perfectly happy to allow them to come into our space and do whatever they're doing because we have an arrangement or an agreement with them. We don't really tend to let anybody in that we don't want in anymore.
okay.
That doesn't happen. So if it's someone that's able to come in to the solar system, they have the ability to do so, chances are they're sanctioned, or they're a diplomatic ally, or it's someone that we know or that we have a positive relationship with. So there aren't too many people that come into our system that are not friends of ours.
Did the Strategic Defense Initiative from Reagan had anything to do with that?
I mean, it was certainly a pawn on the chessboard, right? So I wouldn't say that it was a major thing. It was something that was a part of the process. So money was being funneled. Philosophically, ideas were being promoted. I think that was one of the more important things that was being done about that time. It was this whole idea of us coming together against a potential hostile foe, which is a way of bringing everybody together, which again I'll talk more about when we talk about hoax alien invasion, because that's a thing. It is a truth that a hostile enemy from outside of ourselves would get us to stop fighting amongst ourselves, stop hating each other for 5 minutes, which might be enough, right? It might be enough, it might be long enough to just stop it for 5 minutes and turn our attention somewhere else and get us focused on something different. I mean, without trying to insult our species, okay, we're a shiny object monkey, okay? So you go, shiny object, and there's monkeys, where? Shiny object. So we're easily distracted, and we're easily led by shiny objects. And sometimes that can be a bad thing, and sometimes that can be a good thing. So in this case, I think it may be a good thing if we get distracted by a shiny object that distracts our attention away from hating and killing each other for 5 minutes. That could be invaluable in just resetting the mindset of people on the planet, which could be hugely important.
Also, I do have cases with people that, from my point of view, are sleeper agents.
Yep.
They live among us, like, yep. And they are humans actually.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But they got another life where they interact with alien species, but on a subconscious level. I mean, they're gone physically.
Yep.
They do stuff for them. Yep. And then when they're back, they don't remember anything, and they yep. continue. It's just that in their life,
yep.
there's something weird, and sometimes they come to us and say, oh, I saw a UFO, or right. I had a strange dream, and then we begin the investigation process, and then wow, a kind of story pops out, and
right.
okay, they got another life interacting with alien, doing things for them.
Right.
So
yeah, there's millions of those people on planet Earth,
okay.
and a number of extraterrestrial species decided a very long time ago that they wanted to prepare for some contingencies, and so there are some preparations for some emergency contingencies when they might need millions of personnel who are ready to stabilize an unstable scenario.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.